Hey, it's Steve with Real Progressives. I bet you have once or twice said, oh my God, they're printing more money, haven't you? Tell the truth. It's okay. See, unfortunately, this is like one of those statements that we say when we don't really understand what's going on. It's been abused and said so many times that we just assume it's correct. But there's something so wrong about it that I've got to talk to you about it. I want to make sure you stop doing this. It's really important, ironically, and you'll understand why when I'm done, I hope. If I hit the mark, you'll get it. You'll understand. So way back when, way back when, they would print so much money. This is before computers and stuff like that. And they would have all these pieces of paper laying around, all these coins laying around, and they just print money. And at Fort Knox or wherever the U.S. gold supply was stored, they would have a pile of gold there, okay? And our dollar was pegged to a certain weight of gold. And so when we would print the money, we would print enough money that it would go against that gold, that we would keep it at a certain price level, so that if everybody demanded gold in exchange for their dollars, that there'd be enough gold to give them redeem their dollar for it. We're not on a gold standard anymore, and we haven't been on a gold standard since 1971. I want you to think about that for a minute. Since 1971, you could not force redeem a dollar for gold, period. You couldn't force redeem it for silver. You couldn't force redeem it for chicken necks, favors, nothing. At that point in time, the dollar was taken off the peg, a currency peg. In other words, tying the value of dollar A to weight of gold B. And it was a global standard because it was the Bretton Woods Accord, post-war Bretton Woods Accord, which basically set the world on the dollar standard. And we were in turn held to the gold standard. Well, as the French often do, like they did at the Treaty of Versailles with the Weimar Republic, they came to the U.S. trying to force demand money in gold. And Nixon, knowing this and knowing that we couldn't maintain a flourishing economy with such a constraint built into our economic system, removed us from the Bretton Woods Accord. So now we have a sovereign, meaning that our country is completely king, badass boss of the dollar, sovereign being the country's unit of account. Free floating, meaning it's not pegged to any commodity, not gold, not chicken necks, nothing. Free floating, as I said, sovereign, free floating, fiat currency. Fiat means by decree, meaning that every time we need money, we create it, period. So rather than printing sheets of money, because we don't really use much cash anymore, there's just enough cash in society these days to fill bank teller transactions and ATM requests. That's it. The rest of it is zeros and ones on your debit card and your credit card and so forth. That's it. Period. Full stop. So every time our nation spends, Congress will issue a set of instructions. Those set of instructions then go to the Fed, the nation's central bank that was spoken into existence by an act of Congress in 1913. Okay, the charter by which it was established has been changed many times since 1913. Creature of Jekyll Isle, people down, Simba, eyes up here. Okay, so that said, in 1971, it all changed again, didn't it now, Chauncey? So in 71, when all these things stopped, there's no more thing of printing more money. There's no more, devaluing the dollar by printing more money. A guy named John Harvey, great economist and teacher out of TCU, who writes for Forbes magazine, also wrote a great article, and you can look it up pretty easily, saying money growth does not cause inflation. And when people talk about devaluing the dollar, that's exactly what they're talking about, okay? So it's not money growth at all that causes inflation. What does cause inflation? What causes inflation, in particular in the context most people are thinking of, is shortages of goods and services. When the goods and services, the real resources that we're trying to purchase with our dollars, is in short order, when we don't have enough of them, when we don't have enough of whatever that product or service, a doctor, a lawyer, a Xbox, a school, or whatever it is that we're looking for, when there's not enough of it, when there's there's not enough gas, when there's not enough green energy, when there's not enough whatever. Members only jackets, right? I bet you a members only jacket is super expensive these days. Why is that? Because nobody wants to be, you don't want to be the last member, right? Anyway, bottom line is that printing money is an archaic term. You should never use it for any reason. Ever, by the way. Never use the term printing money. So Congress issues instructions to the Federal Reserve, who then hand smashes into their keyboards, marking accounts up, marking them down in the ledger. That's it. That's where a dollar came from. Keystrokes. The nation's bank puts it into the Treasury's accounts. The Treasury's accounts are then spent into existence. That money didn't exist before Congress said, spend it. Now, let's just pretend for a minute that right there, that act I just described, is printing money. When we authorize a federal tax, what is happening to your tax dollar? That tax comes back around, goes back to the Fed, and it zeroes out. It's deleted. It did its job because a dollar is a tax credit, right? That's all it is. There is no printing more money. It happens this way every single time. So where are you going to get a money for a Green New Deal? Think about it. Are you going to print more money? No. Hell no, you're not going to print more money. That's not how it works. What you're going to do is you're going to say, hey, just like an inch is a unit of measure, just like a pound is a unit of measure, just like the air and the atoms, etc., you can measure each of these things by some unit of measure. The dollar is the nation's unit of account. Just like in England, the UK, the British pound, the sterling, is the British's, the UK's unit of account. Same with Australia. The Australian dollar is their unit of account. The Japanese yen is their unit of account. They can never run out of it. But what's this deal with the euro? That's nobody's unit of account. That's the Troika's unit of account. That's the European Central Bank's unit of account. Well, so what country owns it? None of them. They're all just as if they were a state, just like they were the state of Texas or the state of Delaware. That's how powerless they are over their money supply. So they have to chase money by exporting goods and services. They've got to chase money by reducing spending or by raising taxes. That's the only way that they can fund their government operations. And I think they've even been constrained to like a 3% deficit, which is just not good at all, by the way. Because in the U.S., we look at our own self and we say, hey, if we have unemployment, the deficit is too damn low. We need to spend more money into existence. Now, I'm going to take you into another analogy that might be even easier for you to realize. The economy is a bathtub. In the bathtub, there are faucets putting water into the tub. One of the faucets is pouring money in from the federal government. The other one is pouring it in via bank credit. The other one is pouring it in via imports, or I should say exports, the money coming in from other countries. But down at the bottom, what would happen if all that money is going into the bathtub without some sort of release valve? Well, the bathtub would overflow, right? That'd be your inflation. You'd be getting some pretty heavy-duty inflation. Why? Because now you don't have enough production to meet the needs. But it's got nothing to do with the amount of money. It's got to do with the amount of real resources, the economy that is built to absorb that money. Well, every human being that I know of in the States has pent-up need. They have need for their teeth to be filled. They have need for some surgery that they put off. They have need to take a week off from work because something's going on in their life. But they don't have the money. They don't have the ability. So we're not dealing with an issue of a lack of demand. We're not dealing with an issue of robots taking over. We're dealing with straight up a lack of ability, buying power to take care of the demand that is underlying underneath of all that. So when you tax, there's a drain at the bottom of the bathtub. And the taxes drain money out so it doesn't overflow. And sometimes those taxes are done in a very inequitable way. The wealthy get to keep tons and tons and tons of money, and the poor are forced to pay money that they really don't have. Because $1 to a poor person is worth a hell of a lot more than $1 to a rich person. So for every percentage that you're taxing the poor, you have a very, very unequal society. I want you to think about this. Printing money is a gold standard thing. It doesn't happen that way anymore. And anyone who says it is revealing themselves to not understand how the system works. Printing money is a non-starter. We don't just print money. We always, folks, let me say it again for those that didn't hear it again. We always spend new money into the economy, and we always tax money out of the economy. That's how it works at the federal level. However, states and companies and you and I are all constrained to our income. In other words, in our case, tax revenues and stuff for the states and for the counties, and for us, our paycheck. But the federal government, it has no need for revenue. It literally creates dollars every time it spends, and it never reuses your tax dollar, ever. Not once, not sometimes, not ever. Never does it reuse your tax dollar at the federal level. Did you hear that? Your tax dollar is never reused. It is always 100% of the time deleted. It comes home and it's done. It's done its job because it was spent into the economy, and when it comes home as a tax, it's deleted from the economy. Do you get this? It's not hard. Folks, it really isn't hard. That's the worst part of it. It's an unforced error every time somebody says, well, how are we going to pay for a Green New Deal? Congress will authorize spending. Look, how are we going to pay for all these people that are coming into the country? They're taking our jobs. We'll pay for it with a federal job guarantee by Congress authorizing the funds. That's exactly what we'll do. Well, how are we we can't even take care of our veterans. Well, no kidding. It's because you people believe that we print money and that it's going to drive inflation and all this other insanity. So people die for that lie. Do you understand what I said? People die for that lie. How does that make you feel when you hear somebody say printing money now and my hard-earned tax dollar? And we can't afford it because where are we going to get it? The only problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money. Now, what do you think about that? Now that you know that's full of shit, what do you think about that? Does it make you feel a little bit differently about the people, the good guys even, people on your political team that say this stuff? Does it make you feel a little different knowing that they're actually putting a gun to someone's head and pulling it every time they try and withhold services based on some fake idea that we can't afford it, that we got to come up with tax dollars to pay for it? Do you understand how ruthless and wrong that is? How neoliberal that is? That's a Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan belief that we don't have anything as public money. There's only taxpayer dollars. Do you realize how fundamentally screwed that is? How fundamentally wrong that is, and how fundamentally destructive that is to every one of our lives? That lie is the greatest lie that has ever destroyed a human being in its life. Ever. The biggest lie of them all. That's how bad this is. Every homeless person you see laying there dying, everyone freezing, every time you hear about somebody dying from a lack of medical care, that is all based on an entire lie. The idea of what are you going to do, print more money? That lie, that sick, perverse lie has killed more people than our wars for oil and all the other things, all the banksters. It is the biggest lie of them all. And the reason why they tell this lie at the top is because by making you believe that the federal government can't do it, you become dependent on privatization. You become dependent on Wall Street. You become dependent on bank loans. You become dependent on credit cards. You become dependent on all these things. And this is why people die from cancer treatments not being given. This is why families split up, because there's not enough resources to take care of Johnny and Joey and Sally and Sue. This is why people all over the place lose hope. Look no further than the student loan debacle. The government could write that off immediately without even blinking. Imagine Flint's water crisis. You see all these well-meaning people reporting, well, tell me about Flint's water. So tell me about Puerto Rico. We could easily fix this instantly. For real. Instantly fix it. We have the real resources. We don't have the political will because you still believe it's your hard-earned tax dollar doing it. And so now we got to deal with the racism. Well, I don't want my tax dollars helping those people over there. I only want what I want for these people over here. And my church only supports people that have prayed the sinner's prayer. But we don't help those sinners over there that do this, that, and the other. We only do this for these people. We only do that for those people. What about my race? I only want my race covered. And what about this person's gender? I only want my gender covered. And I only want this, and I only want that. So that taxpayer dollar is the cue card for saying, fuck anybody that doesn't look like me, sound like me, act like me, have my same sensibilities. This is my way of ensuring that people don't get a fair shake. And that, my friends, is why saying printing money and hard-earned tax dollars has got to stop now. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a great day, everybody. I'm out.